Everyone just got off with Warren Clayton, the president of Asheville Hwy Rental, for a 30-second rental roundtable episode. Awesome time with Warren, fellow Clemson grad where I went to college. Talked about his background, chemistry major at Clemson, became a lawyer for several years, and then bought his rental company 8 years ago. They've now almost tripled since he's bought it. Talked about what led to that growth, talked about the fleet, the staff, and the marketing to get there. Talked about Hurricane Helene, who came through uh, North Carolina and South Carolina about a month ago and all the stuff he was doing to sort of help the community, make sure his rental business was still operating in the meantime. And last, we talked about theft and some of the things, the basic things you can do to prevent theft, including just taking the fingerprint. And sometimes that can be enough to deter some of the thieves. So, great episode. Hope you guys enjoy. Everyone, welcome to the 30-second rental roundtable. We've got Warren Clayton on from South Carolina. Warren, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Got a fellow Clemson graduate. I was 2013. You were
Go time.
not 2013, but good to have you on. And I think you can talk. So excited for this episode. You said you could talk to a brick wall. The good news is I have a brick wall behind me. So if I get distracting, just start talking to that. But excited to talk to you. This is a very timely episode, giving the hurricane that came through South Carolina, North Carolina, all the help that you've been offering the last month. I know it's been a very busy time. So we'll talk about disaster recovery. We'll get into that in detail. We'll talk about some theft things as well. I know it's something you've been fighting as well. But to really kick things off, I love origin stories and how do people get into the rental industry. So you're a lawyer. You were a lawyer. You went to Clemson, graduate school at University of South Carolina, getting your law degree, and here you are running a rental business. Tell me how you got into rental, and tell me about your journey here today.
Sure. Yeah, not class of 2013. I'm class actually of 2000
All right.
from Clemson. I was actually a chemistry major, was going to go to med school, sat there, decided one day, I was like, I think I called my mom. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this for the next 10 years. Um, Kind of pivoted at that point, decided I was going to go to law school instead. Worked for the family's construction company for about a year until I was able to apply and get into law school. So I went to Clemson, and then I also went to their big rival, University of South Carolina. So I've gone to both, and just I pull for both until they play each other. But when they play each other, it is go Tigers. Um, so let's see here. I started practicing law in 2004. I've practiced about 10 to 12 years, somewhere in there. I did mostly construction and business litigation. Uh, I worked for a couple of smaller law firms. And then I went in-house for a company over here closer to Spartanburg for about a year and a half, I think. And honestly, they were a little bit small to need actually in-house counsel. But so after that, I decided, so I'd done private practice for so many years, and I got to go to a larger company as their in-house counsel. Kind of a little bit of I guess I'm a little more of an extrovert than an introvert, big people person. And I was just like, I don't want to go back into private practice again. I don't want to go back to billable hours and everything else. So while I was kind of trying to decide what I wanted to do, I think my dad came to me and said, "Hey, Warren, there's this company that's listed for sale right now." And I was like, "Really?" So yeah, it's a rental company. They do, party and event stuff, but they also do the equipment, the construction side. I was like, all right, that might be interesting. He basically said, Warren, do you think you'd ever want to be your own boss? I was like, well, maybe. Uh, I hadn't had a whole lot of management and administration experience, I guess you could say, before then. But it's, like I said, I had kind of a construction law background. My family owns a good size construction, commercial construction company. And so it seemed like it could make a good pairing. So yeah, so back in 2016, I ended up purchasing Asheville Hwy Rental over here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And let's see here, we just passed our 8-year anniversary, I guess, for the company. Um, it's been interesting. Like I said, having not had any sort of uh, uh, business sort of background. Like I said, I was a chemistry major, which, by the way, I don't care who you are. I think you should have your children take at least one accounting class and at least one business class while in college. I probably would have gotten a little more out of that than intermediate shag at Clemson. But but no, I mean, it's kind of been a lot of learn as you go. I've had some great people that work for me. Um, I still do have one of the very original employees. I think he's actually worked for the company now for 16 years, I think. Um, this is my event manager, David Johnson, and he's excellent. He's great. And we've just, it's been a learning experience, kind of, over time growing. We're in a growth mode currently, and have been since I bought the place. Um, Seemed like I was kind of, if for anyone who's ever, starting a rental company, it seemed like I was sort of stuck for about 3 or 4 years. Revenue was just like at this one mark, and I just couldn't seem to get past it. Um, and then it just kind of clicked a bit more in the last 3, 4 years, I'd say. And, we're, I don't know, maybe 2.5 times the size of what we were when I bought the business. Um, and I don't know what else to go into right this very
Yeah,
second off
well,
that.
I have several questions. Yeah, first of all, intermediate shag. If people don't know, that is the state. The shag is the state dance of South Carolina. I took that
It's
class at Clemson. Also got an A, for the record. Um,
very nice.
yeah, I'm sure you did too. I think everyone gets an A in that class.
I
Um,
did. It was fun.
do you feel like so you went from chemistry to law to owning a rental business and running that for the last 8 years? I imagine the chemistry background probably hasn't helped you that much. Has having a law background, has that helped you run your rental business marginally, or is that still irrelevant in your mind?
No, it's not irrelevant. I mean, I definitely learned some things. I think everybody, I mean, just life in general is sort of a learning experience.
Mm.
The law background has helped a little bit. Definitely, I'm a little maybe sort of a little OCD when it comes down to looking at some of the contracts and stuff that we get involved with. Either whether it be loans or the rental agreements. But when it comes to actual legal matters for the company, I'll be honest with you, I'm usually so tied up with the rental company, I'm doing very, very, very little, if at all, any real like legal practice. Now, I still keep up my license. I'm still a fully licensed attorney. I could go back and practice today if I wanted to. But anyone else who's done something different and then decided to get into rental, and whether it be law or some other background, it's kind of like, when do you have the time? You're an owner of a business, you're all in. And so, like, if we have like collection matters or so forth, I'm usually, contacting another attorney who has the time to dedicate to that matter. Like our rental contracts, I hired James Waite. I kind of call him the rental guru, or the
Hmm.
legal rental guru. Does a great job on your rental contracts and agreements. Obviously I worked along with him. I'd say my background maybe helped. I think we did some tweaking to some of the stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, it's helpful, but it's different. I think some of the contacts you make along the way can be helpful to your business, whether it be legal or any other background.
Yeah, and James Waite, they're awesome. We've sent a lot of people their way. They're the leaders in the legal space for equipment rental. Definitely recommend
Sure.
them. I'm interested. You said you were sort of stuck for 3 or 4 years, and then you've sort of grew 2.5 times from where you were 2016. We talked to a lot of rental companies. Obviously there's a lot of ways into the rental industry, but if you simplify it, you either starting a rental company or you're buying a rental company typically, right? And you bought one and have had success growing it, over doubling it in 8 years. What sort of changed? Because you sort of said you were sort of flat, stuck in the mud, maybe, and then all of a sudden things have taken off in the last 3 or 4 years. Is that just the industry doing well, or are there certain things that you can attribute that to?
You could definitely attribute it to a few things. Part of it is new fleet, growing your fleet. Part of it, I'll be honest with you, part of it is my personnel, my staff. I think that's one thing I think I can say that, from the
Mm.
beginning, each hire has always gotten, I guess you could say, better as we've gone along. I've actually got a really great staff now. Whether it be my shop manager, my event side manager, or I actually have a store manager as well. And she actually worked for a competitor rental company that for 15 years. and she's been an excellent addition to our team, with a lot of knowledge, experience, and background. But yeah, I mean, I think that a good bit of it, I mean, you have to buy more fleet to grow the revenue side to an extent. Um, Getting out there, kind of perfecting your model, getting your name out there to people. Um, but I mean, to truly do a large growth, it's going to take more fleet.
Mm.
Uh, I mean, you can maximize to a certain point of what you have, but if you really want to grow, you got to get more fleet in there. Right now, we're actually running into the problems of, like, my location's like 1.7, 1.8 acres. And don't forget, I do the tents and everything else as well, and I also do actually inflatables on top of that. So the amount of space it takes to to clean and dry and service those parts, on top of the place for storage for the equipment and trailers and everything else, we're kind of starting to bust at the seams. So
Mm.
we're probably in the next 2, 3 years, you're going to see some sort of a shift for us, either whether it be getting like a laydown yard, or potentially looking at maybe even moving locations just to something so I can have more acreage. I need more of the blacktop. I need more parking lot
Mhm.
space, I'd say.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to summarize, you sort of said three things that you attribute your growth to, right? One is the fleet. Number two is staff and people. Number three is marketing, getting your name out there. Just to like drill down on those last two, because I think the fleet source is self-explanatory. You need to invest in good equipment, right? How do you find and retain quality people? Because that's something we hear about a lot. Me and you both in these Facebook groups. People, staff turnover. You can't get A players. How are you able to, like you mentioned, every hire you've gotten is sort of a bar raiser, right? They're sort of even better than the last in a sense. Like, how have you been able to, one, attract new and great people, but also retain them?
Honestly, a lot of it, I think, is just I've been blessed. Some of it just sort of happenstance, especially on my shop manager side. It was something where the prior shop manager had a friend that, kind of wanted some side work. And Will Goins, my shop manager, he basically was a buddies with the prior shop manager, and he came in like 3 or 4 hours towards the end of the day, like 3 or 4 days a week. Um, just an excellent, excellent guy. And over time, it worked out that he basically took over that position. My other shop manager, uh, it was back when COVID was rampant. I think he was out for a month, and I think it ended up being kind of a smooth transition, actually. Um, I kind of lucked into Kathy, my store manager. She, the owner of Blue Eagle Equipment, one of my competitors. It was the owner over there. I think it was his second or third time that he had actually sold his company, and so she had actually taken a job working in the accounting department for a recycling company in town. And I think she had an old resume on Indeed, honestly. I was doing some searches and looked up like rental company or whatnot, and I found hers, and she checked every single box. I mean, you can imagine 15 years working for another rental company through, I think, 2 or 3 buyouts. She's Her experience level excellent. She had customers that she had dealt with as well. And she's extremely talented in the accounting side. Um, but yeah, getting the people. I mean, we've had some luck with Indeed. We've had just, I think, some random luck. I mean, honestly, if you come up with you know, the magic thing this is how you get really good people, or you can find them and recruit them, please tell me. I'd love to know. Um, we've just, honestly, we just kind of have gotten lucky on some of it, but we have gone, like I said, we've used Indeed. One of my best of my sales staff at my counter, Avery, he actually was from a temp company, that or staffing company that we used. And I think he came in and worked through them for like, 3 or 6 months. We kept him on. I think he's been here. See, I've owned the company 8 years. I think he's been here for 6.5, maybe 7.
Mm.
He's an all-star. He was in school at the time. He graduated with I think it's finance degree. And talking about numbers, he's a whiz. He's also the best at people that come into the door, you can see him work. He doesn't even have to hardly look at the computer. He just, or what's on the contract. He can just burn through it.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, I've just been kind of blessed. I gotten kind of lucky on some of it. I will tell you, it's a struggle. We're looking right now for some more sales staff, some inside sales staff. We're trying, like I said, trying to continue to grow. Um, it's been hit or miss, and we've kind of put some of that on the back burner because of dealing with everything we've had recently due to the storm and some other issues. Um, some of the staff having family members that have had some poor health, so they've been out a good bit. It's We've been running a lot the last
Run pretty
6 weeks.
lean. Yeah, I
Mhm.
imagine. And I think you sort of skipped over this a little bit, but I think the retention part is equally important. When you do have A players, right?
Yeah,
It's equal, even with customer churn, right? The stats are it's 9 times cheaper to retain a customer than to go get a net new customer. And that's generally across other industries, right? So when you have great customers, you have great employees, spend the time to retain them. So it sounds like you've been incrementally adding people. It's been hard to find them, but when you find them, they're there 6, 7, 8 years, right? That's sometimes way more valuable than every 18 months getting a new manager, right?
I think my first technical hire was my father-in-law.
Hmm.
He's actually been working with me since day one. So that was I guess a little bit easier to find and probably one of the best hires I've ever made. I will tell you that I mean we're a smaller rental company, comparatively speaking, and family owned. It's been family owned. I think there's been a rental company here for 30 plus years where we are, and it's kind of like family. I think that's part of it. The people that come in, it's kind of the culture. It's everyone's, friends. I'd say for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong. We definitely rub each other the wrong way every once in a while, just like any normal family would as well. But I think kind of that family atmosphere, trying to create some buy-in. I'm trying, like I said, I had no business classes. I've not been in a managerial position before buying this company. One of the things that it's been a little bit harder to do, but I've been trying, made like actual conscious effort is to let my managers manage. They'll still come to me on things. I'm like, but it's sort of like, hey, this is whatever you need. If it's whether it's an employment issue with hiring or firing someone, it's kind of like I'm trying to step back a little bit, not micromanage as much. Let them learn, let them do their thing, and that helps I think a lot. And obviously I'm still very involved on certain aspects, but letting your managers manage, trying to create buy-in with them. I always try and bring at least one or two of our staff. I'm very active with the ARA. I'm actually the president for the ARA of South Carolina. When we have events, either the ARA show or just recently, I think went to the hope you don't mind, but the POR International Conference. I try and take at least one or two of our staff, let them get the benefit of what they can learn there. The networking as well. Let your staff feel involved,
Hmm.
and not just feel involved, but let them be involved.
Hmm. The culture is king, right? Building an awesome culture. They're bought in, bringing it back to Clemson and Dabo for a second, right? That's how he's built it, right? And you get great people and you retain them for a long time, right? That is one strategy, right? It's not the goal. There's no, silver bullets in life, but that seems to be a strategy that's worked for you. I want to get to the marketing side, and we're going to talk about the hurricane in a second. But the third thing you mentioned, just kind of going back to your growth, right? Getting great fleet, getting great people, and then marketing, getting your name out there. We talked earlier before about Rodney Coker came on and all the hats he's ordered. I don't know how many it was, thousands of hats, right? That was his tactic. Like, how are you growing? How are you getting your brand and your name out there?
Um, I'm not as good as others on the marketing. I can tell you with our individual company, because of the different aspects of what we rent, anyone and everyone you meet is a potential customer.
Mm.
They're either going to have a child that needs maybe a bounce house for a birthday, or someone who's trying to do some work around their house, renting equipment, or a wedding and needing tents and tables and chairs and linens and so forth. So trying to get involved with whether it be your local chamber. one of my children goes to just started at a private school last year. They're extremely involved with the parents, so forth. So getting out there, getting to socialize, meet with other people. I do some of the just recently in the last year and a half, some of the Google advertising, paying for the Google ads. I've got a gentleman I use who's kind of more or less he actually owns a rental company. That's kind of his thing, is doing like the Google ads and stuff for like rental companies. From what I can tell, it's hard to track that stuff 100%, but right now we're busting at the seams. A lot of it obviously due to the storms, but I think definitely some of that's helping. I don't have like a strict marketing budget like some other companies. Like I probably envy a lot of other competitors of mine who are really much more organized and disciplined on that. But I think it's just trying to make decisions on, if you're going to help sponsor something or, pay for some sort of ads, make sure it's something that you're interested in, that you would like to be involved with as well. But you're going to have to get out there. You have to be involved. If you're an introvert, you kind of have to learn how to be a bit of an extrovert, or at least hire some personnel who are.
Yeah, well, I think just to summarize the growth conversation, it's all these things together. It's fleet, great people who deliver great service. It's getting your name out there with paid marketing, but also just being involved in the community. And for your business, anyone could be a customer, right? Because it's inflatables or party or equipment rental, right? I want to switch to the hurricane, right? So this is October 30th. If you listen to this on Spotify later, right? Hurricane Helene came through almost exactly a month ago. Probably unexpectedly, right? It was supposed to go through Florida and maybe hit Atlanta where I am and sort of missed us a little bit. South Carolina and North Carolina got hit pretty hard. Tell me about those, first 48 hours, that first week, and how your rental company's been able to sort of help the community in this sort of moment of crisis that was pretty devastating for a lot of North and South Carolina.
So we're we're in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We're in what they call like the upstate or the foothills. We're like 4 hours from the coast.
Mm-hmm.
We don't ever usually care about, I mean, not that we don't care, but we don't ever fret over a hurricane that's coming through and going to hit South Carolina or North Carolina. Usually it's, obviously we're going to get usually rain, maybe a little bit of elevated winds, but this was just, no one expected this. And what's kind of been a little bit odd about this storm, at least in my mind, is it's affected everyone sort of differently depending on where they were. So Spartanburg, where we're at, we got slammed. We actually, by the way, I just got back internet yesterday. So
This is a month after the hurricane. A month after the hurricane, didn't have internet.
Yeah. Wow. The power companies, I got to tell you, they were just amazing on their response. I will say the cable internet companies, my Spectrum is mine, has not been near the same response as the power companies did. Actually, it was kind of made you feel sort of bad when the guys came and fixed the power. I mean, the internet yesterday. I got to talk to one of them. I was like, so what was going on? Why is like this whole street on this other side and everyone down to about a block away from me seemed to have internet? What was wrong with ours? And he's like, you don't want to know. I was like, yeah, dude, come on, tell me. He's like, it was a fuse. Because he got up there, got to the pole, I guess replaced the fuse. He was done in 30 minutes, and that returned power to like 15 businesses on the street over here. So I was like, okay. But I had actually so to kind of back things up, we have been completely without any sort of access to the internet. I went and bought actually several mobile hotspots from AT&T. So, all right, let's just start at the beginning. Storm hits us, Friday morning, Thursday evening, Friday morning. Is that right?
That's right.
I think we got, 12 plus inches of rain originally. And then it was the wind. So the rain just saturated everything. And then we had, sustained I think 35 or 40 mile an hour with gusts exceeding 65 miles an hour. And so what that basically created was a problem where all these huge oak trees, and also evidently there were several tornadoes that came through our area as well. But these huge, beautiful oak trees, 50, 100 plus, years old, were just toppled over. The ground was so saturated, they didn't snap in half and break. It was just everything, including the roots, just fell over completely. I think originally I thought I had like 4 trees down, I think in my yard. I think once we got a little bit further into it, back in the backside of my property, I think there's probably about another 6 down. There's trees leaning on other trees and everything else. I mean, the next time we have a big windstorm, we'll probably lose power again due to all the trees that are leaning on other
Yeah.
trees that are going to fall down. But let's see here. So we lost power, and we got power here at my store somewhere between we were out with like 7 or 8 days, I think,
Wow.
without power. We were without internet, obviously, for a little over a month. Um, you've got to pivot. No, I don't think anyone was really prepared for this storm. They
Hmm.
weren't prepared for the amount of damage here. And so we had tons and tons of trees down, lots of power lines. Obviously, your cable internet and everything, the lines were down. But in general, I think most people around here were relatively lucky. It was up in Western North Carolina where it just created these huge flooding events. All these towns next to these, beautiful little calm streams and creeks became just saturated and completely flooded with, water and mud and whatever these streams picked up from further up stream. Chimney Rock, North Carolina doesn't even exist anymore, really. I mean, it compromised roads, utilities, infrastructure. Up there, there was, quite a few lives lost due to the flooding. Some places had no water or no clean water for a good period of time. I think some of them still don't. Power outages, and you're up in the mountains anyway. And so some of these people are, a little bit more off the beaten path. Um, you know, Here in Spartanburg, like lots of trees, but we didn't have the devastating and life-threatening flooding like they did up there in Western North Carolina. And they also had the trees, and everything falling down as well. Um, let's see here. Just trying to think. I mean,
So how did you guys help though, right? Because you're 4 hours away from a lot of the damage. As we mentioned, like some of these towns in North Carolina are gone, maybe forever. Like to be honest, like they're not going to be rebuilt. Even in Atlanta, we're 2 hours south of you. I think it was like more rainfall than they've ever had in like over 200 years. And that there's like major flooding in Atlanta. Augusta, Georgia got totally crushed. Your area got hit hard. You were out of electricity for eight days and internet for 30 days. But the worst part was in Western North Carolina. How are you guys able to help that community with some of your, rental equipment?
okay. So originally, I'd actually purchased quite a few generators from one of my suppliers, Great Northern Equipment. I pretty much bought out everything they had left on that point. And so and honestly, that stuff also got stuck in shipping limbo for like an extra 5 or 6 days. So by the time I got them in my area, a lot of people actually had back power
Mm.
or had already bought generators. But during that process, I think it was one of my employees took out a little screenshot of a Facebook post and sent it to me. And it mentioned something because it mentioned something about needing generators. And it was so right next to Spartanburg is down Greenville. And in their downtown little city airport. I guess I think it's Happy Helicopter Tours had started basically a donation center. And what they were doing is they were airlifting supplies up to the Asheville and Western North Carolina area where you couldn't get through with a car, that the roads were still so washed out or trees down and so forth. So they had basically started a donation center, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And so I reached out to them and said, hey, what do y'all need? We would love to help. What can we do? So I was coordinating, and this was all volunteer. There was no specific I don't know, governmental agency or anything running it. This was all people just doing what they could to help. And basically they had, I don't know, 300 volunteers in this little downtown Greenville airport that were helping to bring in and unload and reload supplies that people were coming in and donating. It was honestly, it was amazing. They did such an excellent job. They started with airlifts. Once the roads got cleared up, they started, having people come in who had trucks or trailers and their cars or whatever, loading up with supplies. And a woman, Tracy Roberts, I think was kind of probably the lead person. She was a realtor up there, or is a realtor up there in Greenville, and she was basically reaching out to different people up in North Carolina, her contacts, to find out where were the places of need, where were the people that hadn't seen any sort of help as of yet, and would get actual addresses and start routing all these trucks up to North Carolina. We brought over supplies that we had, water. I think I gave some of my hand sanitizer stands donated to there for that I had still from COVID and so forth. I was able to get donations from other local companies like Cintas. I think at one time they were asking for masks over in Asheville, the hospital. They were without power. I mean, they actually were without power for like I think 8 hours or more, but without water and so forth, and some of the supplies up there. So they needed like masks and gloves. And Cintas, I think, donated like a pallet full of masks that we were able to get up there, as well as some other supplies. A local company, Contech, donated a bunch of medical related supplies. Trying to think of all the other donations that we had gotten. But then as we got into, we took donations to the basically that donation center over in Greenville. I started asking, like, is there anything else you guys need? And they're like, yeah, we could really use like, since we don't have power and people are basically using their cell phones to go use a restroom inside of a plane hangar in the dark. It's like, we could really use some, porta johns. So I was able to reach out to some of my contacts with some of the rental community. Specifically on that one, it was Reliable Site Services by United Rentals, and they donated, I think it's like 3 or 5 different porta johns for them to be able to use there. I think we might have gotten some forklift donations. I know that Sunbelt Rentals, with my contacts over there, they were extremely helpful, either there at that donation center, and also once that started slowing down, over to Marshall, North Carolina, which was basically another volunteer donation center up there. That was the contact with the people running it. Can't remember his name right now. I think it's Nanostead Builders. I think it's Small Homes. He's normally a contractor that was kind of running that show, and he said that their biggest thing needed was a water truck, not for clean water, but for their downtown, the amount of mud that had been placed on the streets and in the buildings. Once they were to get the mud out of the way, it's all the dust, because they hadn't. I think we had a rainstorm 3 or 4 days ago. I think it's the first rain we've had since the hurricane. And all the trucks and the traffic coming in there were just creating all this dust because it was so dry, and it's getting in everybody's face and nose and mouth. And it's like, you really don't know what's in that because of anything that could have gone and washed down those rivers during the floods. So Sunbelt Rentals, I know, was able to get them a water truck that basically they just need something to spray down the roads, just to dampen it down, just to lower the amount of dust that was getting picked up from all the traffic. I think they might have even also helped them with a mobile command center. That was another need that they had. I mean, that's honestly the best thing has been is any company that I've contacted or spoken with, it's when I tell them that, what we're doing, we're trying to help with the relief efforts in North Carolina. All they say is, what do you need? I mean, I've just had amazing response thus far, including with my own people. When I took them up there to the donation center, when we got back, I asked the guys, it's like, well, what did you think about that, guys? And they're like, man, it was amazing. I felt like I was doing something that mattered, that I was like, we were, changing lives is what we just did. It's been humbling and amazing, heartfelt, and I don't know, a lot of emotion involved, but the struggle up there is real, and and I've said this a couple of times, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. People up there, they're going to be without, power or heat. It's starting to get cold up there in North Carolina, for months in some places. And I think some down there in Georgia with you, I believe I've spoken with some of the Homeland Security area, basically for Georgia, and I think they had gotten a request for some restroom or shower trailers a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, "I'm pretty much pulling these off sites. Why do y'all need it?" It's like, well, we thought we were going to be up quickly, but turns out the infrastructure is a lot more damaged than we thought, and it might be 2 or 3 months before we're able to get I don't know if it was water and power and everything back to that
Mm.
area. Like I said, no one expected this, and yeah, I mean,
It's going
I
to
hope
take
that
years to rebuild. I think the interesting thing hearing you speak is the unique role that you and local rental companies can play, right? Because although you donated a lot of your time and some of your equipment, things like that, it's also the connections you had, right? You because you built relationships in the community for 10, 20 plus years, you can make the calls and because this makes you feel good in the world, right? We have an election next week and you sort of feel not great about it, right? There actually are a lot of great people who want to help. And when you say, "Hey, here's what we're doing," and the first thing everyone said, right, is how can what do you need? How can I help? And people showed up, and maybe in areas that the government wasn't actually involved with yet, right? So I think that's what I hear from you. It's like you were providing a lot of your own time and coordination, et cetera, but it wasn't just you doing it alone. It was you bringing your community with you, right? And making those calls to
oh yeah,
Cintas and Sunbelt, and you just named 5, 10 different groups. And I think that's interesting with like really great local companies are really invested in their local community. And inevitably, when these disasters strike, that is like an opportunity to really lead, right? Because although you may not have everything they need, you know the people who have it, right? I think that's sort of my takeaway listening to you speak is the importance of all the relationships you built over the last, several decades, right?
sure, yeah, absolutely. You know, when I go to, I mean, like I said, being involved with our local ARA board, and with my involvement with the national ARA as well, and I've done some the last year and a half. I've been doing some government procurement work, especially on our event side. The connections I had there, reaching out to some of those people, like the guys at Sunbelt and United, and being able to say, "Hey, we have a need here. Is there anything that y'all can do to help?" And the response has been amazing. That's been huge. There's the networking that you get out of ARA and being involved with the different rental organizations is invaluable on something like this. Having friends.
Yeah. Have you been able to? I mean, obviously the local community is able to help. I'm sure you got rental companies all across the country. Have people outside of your region reached out? Is there anything like people nationally could help with? Because obviously it's still a marathon, right? We still got months and years ahead to help this community. Is there anything that people outside your community can help with?
Absolutely. Actually, hope I'm stopped sweating from when I joined the call. We actually just finished loading up like 58 generators onto a trailer that's going up to the Bakersville and Spruce Pine area in North Carolina, a nonprofit PCCR, which is Plain Compassion Crisis Relief, I believe is what it stands for. They reached out to us through a contact that I had actually in a local networking group, and they had set a goal of having like 1,000 generators to get donated and to supply the people of North Carolina as well as heaters. And like I said, it's getting cold, and they were having a hard time finding generators. And through the contact that I had in my networking group, the guy who runs another nonprofit, Fire Pit Ranch, and they were involved. They were working together, and he said, Warren, is there a chance that you've got the generator still in stock? It's like, yes, I do, actually. And it just worked out great. I mean, it's a Christian-based organization, and they've just been so thankful and grateful for the ability to be able to get these generators to take up to North Carolina, to help with these people before it's, I think it's supposed to get into almost freezing temps in the next week or so. So
Mm-hmm.
so and PCCR is actually a national organization, I believe. Obviously the Sun Belts and the Uniteds that have been so helpful as well too. They're a national organization. So is Centos. But I've had other people just in the rental groups that I'm in. I'm pretty active in the Facebook groups.
You're listed as like one of the top contributors I see, by the way. You're it's a merit badge.
Well, I might be a top contributor. It doesn't qualify like whether or not my contributions are really worthwhile.
It's all about
Uh,
volume, not quality, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Unfortunately, I mean, what's sad is if I didn't own a business, I wouldn't hardly be even be on Facebook, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, like my contributions of hey, guess what funny socks I'm wearing today? I don't know if that's as helpful as other things. Um, but I've had people reach out from the different rental groups to saying like, hey, we got a bunch of people that are getting together, a bunch of supplies. We're taking, 2 or 3 trucks and trailers down there. It's like, hey, Warren, do you happen to know any spots specifically that are in more need than others that we should try and deliver these goods to? And I've tried to help when I had an understanding of who was in the most need and for what. It's a lot of these groups that are up there, it's almost like it is. It's like a daily list. It's like, hey, here's our,
Mm,
top need today. And it changes like every day. It might be generators today. It might be, brooms tomorrow. It might be building materials the next day.
mm.
It just kind of depends.
Yeah. Well, if anyone, obviously, me and you are 2 hours away. This is a national podcast. I see people listening from Texas, California. If anyone does want to help with the disaster recovery, which is going to take months and years, right? You can email me, Kyle@Quipli.com, and I connect you with Warren. Also, just look up Warren Clayton on LinkedIn. I'm sure they can send you a message. Sounds like there's still a huge need for help. Um,
Sure. And I don't mind. I mean, I'll get my cell phone out. I don't care. 864-710-4400. I'll be honest with you, with our internet and everything being out for a month, on top of everything else, texting me is actually easy. The best way. If you want to get a hold of me, texting is the best way. You can send an email if you want, but I'm probably still 3 weeks behind on answering my emails. I think one thing you wanted to touch on was, you know, especially when you didn't realize that there was going to be an impact. I think you want to know, like, how do you prepare for a storm like this? Was that kind of
Yeah, I
one
was
of the
going to ask that.
things?
How do you prepare for that? And also, how do you keep operating, your business, right? I just, I just flew back from DC on Monday, and I had my 1.5-year-old with me, and they tell you, hey, make sure when the masks come down, if they do come down, put yours on first before the infant, right? And some level, like it's the same for your business. Like you want to help your community, but you got to make your business keep running, right? Because if your business goes out of business in this time, well, you actually can't help the community, right? So you do need to protect your business. Like, so I'm interested in like preparing for these sort of things, which no one saw coming. No one had this coming up to North Carolina, right? So it happened in real time. So how do you prepare for that? But also in the moment, how do you keep the business operating while you're able to continue to give back to the community? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. And I don't think I've talked to anyone before on that with this storm who said, "Oh man, I was completely prepared." I
I
figured it
saw
was
this
coming.
coming.
Yeah, I already took all the right spots. I mean, I didn't lose power, but for about 30 minutes because I already had backup generators set up and everything else. I haven't, whoever that person is, good for you, man, because I haven't met or talked to you yet. So we, just like everyone else, had no idea it was going to be like this, like none. It was, um, I would say, so a couple of things, with our business, I think we were without phones at all for at least, I think, 2 days.
Mhm.
It was actually, I think, David Johnson, my event manager, who came up with the brilliant idea of, hey, Warren, why don't we just go up to Cricket Wireless or whatever up here because they actually had power, and get one of those little burner phones and have all the calls for the business routed to the burner phones. At least then we have, I say burner phone, you prepaid phone.
I was
But
telling you, how many phones do you have right now? You told me like 5 or 6.
oh, like phones in the store?
Yeah,
Oh no, it's more like 12
12
or
phones,
so.
burner phones, flip phones.
Oh no, I'm just talking like the actual phones in the. I thought you were asking the actual phones in the store. Um, I mean, all right. So when I was with Verizon, I kept basically an old phone and kept the line and kept paying on it. I had it like my safe. It was an old iPhone. So if we ever lost power, we could basically use it and transfer the calls there. Every time we ever lost power, if it's like someone hit a telephone pole and knocked down the power line or something, you go to the safe, the phone's dead, you got to sit there and charge and everything else. Usually my people would just say, hey, just transfer them to my cell phone. It's my personal cell phone. For the 3 or 4 or 5 hours we might be without power. And, so when I switched over to AT&T, I just, got rid of that line. The benefit of like the little Cricket phone is, I think it was like 160, $180. And I got a month's worth of service on it. If I don't need it anymore after a month, I just don't renew it. If it happens again, I can call up Cricket or whatever, I guess, and reload the phone with time or whatever. Like I said, David, my event manager, actually handled everything for it on that. But that got us that got us back to the point where we could actually talk to our customers again, which is very important. Because they're calling you like crazy and they can't get through. But the best you can do is, for us was maybe post on Facebook that, sorry, we're without power and without phones. So our first step was we got the phones back up, as far as, temporary with a burner phone. Things you need on this, by the way, fuel.
Mm.
If you can, if you think something's coming, if you've got fuel caddies, whatever, fill them up, get yourself fuel. Generators, if you have them, obviously. What generators we had for rent, I think I rented 2 or 3, but we only had, a handful. The rest I basically gave to my employees and staff. So it was basically kind of help them with their homes and everything, getting them actually some power to run their refrigerators and so forth. Because most people I've talked to were without power, minimum 3 days, 5, 7 days. So a lot of it's, taking care of your staff. Chainsaws, lots and lots of chainsaws and chains and bars and oil. Especially if you rent them. I've made quite a few purchases since this storm started, and I bought out all the chainsaws in our local Ag Pro, like tractor dealership. That was a steel dealer. A mobile hotspot. That was how we were able to continue business until yesterday when we got our actual internet back. And if I had not had an IT company that we were already dealing with, I don't know what we would have done, because my IT company probably spent 3 days, off and on, if not more, working through all the ins and outs of going from a, static IP address through Spectrum over to the AT&T mobile hotspot to get us back internet. And we have PoE phones, so power over Ethernet phones. So without the internet, we didn't have any phones. So once we got that mobile hotspot, and a lot of that stuff, I don't understand all the technical portions of it, but they were able to eventually get it figured out to where that mobile hotspot could be used for our company. But if you don't have an IT company that you're already working with, get one. Let's see here. A tablet. Oh, having set up a payment portal with your merchant service company. So we couldn't swipe credit cards, we couldn't run credit cards, and in the past we've struggled and done the whole write the credit card thing down until we got power back. Obviously, we weren't able to do anything for the first 2 or 3 days, but our credit card merchant service company, they have like an online web portal. I think every one I've ever used has somewhere some sort of online web portal. Now, it might not talk to your rental software, when you're writing your contracts and so forth, but at least you can take the payment, know that it went through, get any deposits that you need. But having that set up on the front end, everyone should do that. Anyone who's got a business, rental business at all, should at least have something set up where they can go into their payment portal with their credit card merchant service and have that set up in case they lose power or lose internet, which takes away their credit card machines. Cellular tablets, phones, so forth, so you can actually get on. I think I brought my iPad from home, and one of my staff brought his. They use that to get into the payment portal. It's things you wouldn't necessarily think of,
Just having redundancies in place for if
Yeah.
/ when these things. But I think, Robert Duville, he messaged in, by the way. I think Starlink as well. Starlink's available for free at the end of the year in North Carolina is what he's saying. So anyways, that's something else to look at.
So I went down with those generators that I bought. Like, I actually had to drive truck trailer down to the depot when they finally did get in, and they were finally able to get power back and I actually released them, and picked up the first, I think, 2 or 3 orders of the generators, brought them back to my store, then immediately drove up to Concord, North Carolina, where the only Starlink system that I could find, it was actually the Starlink Mini at a Best Buy or whatever. And I was able to do the little, I don't know, it's like a locker thing where you pick it up after hours. But I raced up there with my 7-year-old son after picking up all the generators to go pick up the Starlink. And basically the same time I got it is when our IT company was able to get our cellular hotspot to the point where it was actually working. So I ended up using the Starlink at my house. Now, at some point in time, I thought I was potentially going to need to run generators up to North Carolina and potentially sell them off of a truck after they arrived in Spartanburg so late. So I also thought, like, well, at least I can go someplace and would have Wi-Fi, and could potentially give it to others that may or may not have had service up there in North Carolina for a while. Luckily, we didn't have to get to that point, but I did buy a Starlink system for my house as well as that little mini that I basically bought for the
Mhm.
business and so forth. So I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of people that are probably going to be switching their internet providers after the amount
Yeah.
of time it's taken to get it back. But the Starlink thing's pretty cool. I haven't done the one that's like, actually physically mounted on the building or whatever yet. That one's still in the box, but it was just 1 month free. So he's saying it's free for the whole state until the end of the year now.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. We just
Great.
have a few minutes left, Warren. So I want to talk about our last topic we talked about on theft, if we have a second. The next episode in 2 weeks will be with Sergeant Dietz. The whole episode around preventing theft. That's his wheelhouse. It's gonna be awesome
Yeah,
episode. I
love
know
him.
you use Happen for the GPS telematics. You're a fan of them. Talk to me about some
I
of the things you're doing to prevent theft. Maybe the top 2 or 3 things that rental companies should be thinking about.
Number one, cheapest and I think best deterrent. Get on Amazon, buy the little it's like the inkless fingerprint pad, like that would help you to like if you're at the bank, I think if you might have to leave a fingerprint on a check.
Yeah.
We require every customer to leave a fingerprint on their contract, no matter what it is. We've, had people look at us funny, kind of question some things, but I could probably count on one or two hands how many people have actually said, yeah, I don't do fingerprints, sorry, and leave. And we're saying, thank you for the thought. That's just our store procedure. And I think if you have a potential thief coming in there, I think if they have to leave their fingerprint on the contract, so whether they've got a fake ID or not, I think that is a big deterrent. I learned that one from my friend Bentham Reed down in Black Oak Rental in Sumter. Um, a lot of it is listen to your gut.
Mm.
Someone shows up in a rental truck to pick up a skid steer, and especially when you have these people call in and want to set up the rental and they're all on the phone, but they're not the ones that show up. There are a lot of it is just kind of listening to your gut. If you need to, you can be checking people's, IDs. Does it match their credit cards? Does it match the registration in a vehicle that's there? Um, but anytime you have out of state licenses or license tags, I mean, just there's small things that just kind of build up, and you get that sort of hair raising on the back of your neck feeling. That's the ones where you need to slow down and say, hey, if I can't get more to make me feel better about this rental, maybe I just make it a pass. We've definitely passed on some people. I will say right now, the mini skids, the stand-on like mini skid steers, is one of the hottest items right now for theft. That as well as like the towable manless. A lot of these thefts are actually a part of large theft rings that I've been very involved on the theft stuff as well. And, I've spoken to Sergeant Dietz many times, but they're actually a lot of them being heard are run out of the gangs and the prisons of all things.
Mm.
They're, a lot of times they already found a buyer before they've gotten the equipment. They found someone who says, yeah, I'm going to buy this piece of equipment. Then they'll go and rent it. And it's, gone within, a few hours of when they pick it up.
Mm.
Um, you know, Obviously the different GPS trackers happen actually has a cool thing. It's a ghost tracker. It's actually like a wireless and a wired one. If make the wired one easy to find and the wireless you hide. They have a Bluetooth connection. When they lose connection, the wireless one hops in and starts giving a signal. Um, but listen to your gut. I love the fingerprints thing. It's the cheapest and easiest thing to do. Um, you know, Requiring people to anytime you have people calling in and reserving over the phone, especially when they're asking for a specific thing, not a mini skid, but hey, I want a, MT 100 Bobcat mini skid. It's kind of like, they might already have the buyer for an MT 100, mini skid. If they show up in a Home Depot truck or a U-Haul or whatever, or if a lot of times if they'll send in a wrecker on a reservation, we have turned people away and or we've started calling and getting pretty good confirmation for sure. We also ask the wreckers, hey, have you delivered for these people before? Do you know where it's going? So forth. Make sure things match like where they told you versus where the wrecker says he's going to drop it off. Um, it's the best things that can be done are either extremely cheap or are free because it's you.
Mm.
I think other software is like I think IntelliCheck that will like check an ID for whether
Yeah.
it's real or not. I know my friend John Donahue with Happen has a couple of websites where I think you can look up the license tag like on a
Mhm.
vehicle and it'll tell you what the make and model is. And I think there's a couple other things you can check with the driver's license, but there's some free sites involved as well.
I do think technology will be an important part of this as we sort of move into 2025, like, the GPS, the license scanning, the background checks, but there's basic stuff, right? Even just having a fingerprint that will help you get the thief later, but also just signals to the potential thief that, all right, these guys are serious. If they're already taking my fingerprint, what else are they doing that I don't know about? I think it's a psychological, like, all right, I may go to the guy down the street who's not doing fingerprints. It's a psychological thing. And what does that cost? What, 10, $20 to get on Amazon?
Yeah, yeah,
Not
like
even.
two or we actually put them. We put the little like 3M double-sided sticky tape on the back side of the fingerprint thing so that the clipboards we send out with our delivery guys, they have the fingerprint things on them too. So when they deliver them, the person who's accepting the equipment, he's going to put his fingerprint on that contract as well. Um, yeah, I mean it's small things, and it's always listen to your gut, and don't be afraid to turn down a rental
Mm.
and to just be polite about it, but just say, you know, without this information, I mean, if you feel uncomfortable about it, you can probably find enough things where they can't get stuff to match. Credit cards with licenses, registrations of the vehicles, matching stuff, or hey, we just don't rent, you know, to customers that send a record truck to pick up stuff. We got to have the customer come in and sign the agreement and everything else.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to turn a rental.
For sure. Well, we're gonna have a whole episode on that in 2 weeks for the next episode with Sergeant Dietz, who's an expert in this. So excited for that. And Warren, I know we're just out of
Yeah,
time here. So just want to wrap up and sort of thank you for coming on episode 32 here. It's cool hearing your journey from Clemson chemistry and intermediate shag to a lawyer to buying a rental company and running that for the last 8 years. And the cool thing I'm taking away from this is the importance of community, right? And being involved in your community to grow your rental company, but also to be there in times of need. And this whole idea, you're not solving the problem yourself, but you're getting the problem solved, right? With the community and the network you have, and the importance of relationships and building that over time. So, I love your activity on Facebook. If you're not in these two Facebook groups, Warren's in there, and I love the stuff you're posting, and I definitely love the socks. Warren, thanks for everything you do for the industry. I know you've got a great rental business, but you like to help people, and I appreciate everything you do for the industry as a whole. So, including coming on this episode. You got a lot going on. So thanks for the time today, Warren, and I look forward to seeing you at the A ratio in January.
thanks, Kyle. Absolutely. Can't wait.
All right, sounds good. See you guys. See everyone.